So I'm a little surprised that it's 15 or so videos in here, and I'm just about to talk about this next car. Kind of an intro to my 1985 Chevy Camaro IROC-Z, Z28 IROC-Z. Of all the cars I own currently and have ever owned, had this thing the longest. Originally got it 22 years ago. And still have it. It's probably the most modified car I own. It's not terribly heavily modified, but lots of little things here and there. But yeah, it's kind of that one car that I'd probably never sell if held on to it this long, that it just, yeah, I couldn't imagine at this point ever selling it. So there it is. 1985. The sun glare might be hitting a little bit hard, but 1985. So back up a little bit here. Kind of a weird angle with the sun coming down, but yeah, 85 Camaro, IROC-Z. For the first couple years, the Z28 and the IROC-Z were kind of piggybacked on top of each other before the IROC-Z got spun on as his own package. The infamous mullet machine to a lot of people, but really was the best, yeah, pretty much the best Camaro package you could get in the mid-80s. This one is a 305 two-port motor. So when you speak of those 305 engines, they were never particularly big performers, but really the only configuration that was any good really was that the two-port engines from 85 to, was it 90, I guess, 90, 91, somewhere around there. I guess they would have carried them all the way through 92 for the end of the generation. But yeah, car's real clean. It has been repainted. It was actually sprayed before I bought the car, but I got it with this new paint on it. And 20 plus years later, it's still looking pretty good. Mostly been a garage queen. Does have a couple little scuffs. Unfortunately, those were all my doing. But yeah, let's break down kind of what this thing has and honestly what the plans are. This was kind of my one performance vehicle for quite a few years, so I did a lot of little common performance mods and upgrades, and then kind of as other cars came and went, this one's just kind of stayed its current configuration for years now, so it's about time to do something different with it. So exterior wise, it visually at least is mostly stock. It still has the original, those are actually the original wheels. I just rattle can painted in black a few years back. They had some curb rash ever since I've had it, so they weren't really perfect in the beginning. But they do have, currently they have, those are Toyo Proxies. I can't remember what fish they are. What is it, R888? Is that what it is? R888Rs? Yeah, R888R. So they're you know, they're a street legal, but they're almost like an autocross tire. They're 255/50/16. Stock came with 245/50. So just slightly oversized. Really makes it a true 26-inch tire. But they fit the 16x8 wheel pretty nicely. It's about all you can get on those wheels. Yeah, so wheels and tires, technically stock wheels, and these slightly upgraded tires over time. It's had plenty of different sets over the years. Different sets of wheels and tires, to be honest. It's had Corvette wheels, it's had different Camaro wheels, it's had a whole bunch of stuff over the years, but for the most part, I've settled on these the last few years. Let's see, what else? Visually, you know, other than obviously the repaint a few years back, well, a few years, 20 years back, still has a Pennsylvania tag on it. Flowmaster exhaust, so it does have the Flowmaster tip sticking out the back, but for the most part it's not even tinted or anything, so the most part it's, you know, original look on the outside. Still a stock spring, so it has a little bit of a off-roady stance. Unfortunately, it's close. I don't, in my opinion, it doesn't necessarily need a tuck or anything, but it is a little bit too high, so I might do like drop springs or something on it, even in the interim. But yeah, on the front here, you know, I did technically replace the little, I don't know if you call it a grill or what, It had a real beat up one that said Camaro. I think that's actually the factory one. I put the one in here as a little bow tie. I thought it was a little cleaner. That's a little bit of the damage you can see here. I'll zoom in a little bit. Unfortunately, yes, not perfect. That was me. Actually contacted way down here at the bottom, but it's just an old bumper and the old paint. It's just the whole thing flexed and it started chipping all over. So that's the only real damage that's on the car per se. Well, not totally true. We'll come over to this side. But it's kind of hard to tell. You probably can see me in there, but there's a little bit of a scuff on the side of the car. It's in the paint. That was actually me driving one car into another car. Yeah, one of my better moves. I still can't believe I did that. But anyway, that was... and it has maybe a tiny little bit of a... I don't know if you can see down there, just a hint of a bump on the weather stripping. I think it could probably polish out. This stuff is, this trim piece is broken off over the years. I have a new one to put on for that as well. But yeah, so at least on the exterior, mostly stock. Clean, especially for an old car. I'll probably never paint it again. It doesn't really need it. Just kind of live with this paint. Looks good from a few feet away at least. So let's check out the interior. So the interior on this thing is very red. Unlike modern cars where it's a lot of like contrasting colors, you have the interior kind of a different color in the exterior. There's a very common thing in the 80s to, well, match your exterior. So this thing is pretty intense in here. Original seats, they're actually still in surprisingly good shape. The previous owner actually had that driver's seat somewhat repaired, which in my opinion was a complete waste of money, but whatever, they did it. Many years ago, my stupid self thought it'd be cool to remove the rear seats, and who knows where they ever ended up. Long gone. So this is a true two-seater now. But yeah, as you can tell, heavy on the red. Red vinyl door cards or interior panel here. Red carpet, red seats. The headliner is gone. Being a T-top car, it just ripped it off because it was sagging. But it would have been a red headliner as well. Red sail panels. So yeah, this thing is pretty intense in the red. Let's see. I did put a new, over the years, it's got just a Sony head unit, but mostly stock internal. I think I put a new pad in the center. It surprisingly still has the original dash cover in pretty good shape. Actually really good shape for most. It is a manual window, manual lock car. Kind of a, like, all the performance options and nothing else came with this. So in some ways it has like base model features, like the seats aren't the good seats. But, you know, manual windows, manual locks, things like that. But then they did get the IROC, the best engine, things like that. I think the IROC might have come, it's been so long, kind of bad memory on all my third gen stuff, but I think the IROC did come probably with the throttle body engine as well. So there are a couple options there. But yeah, so interior mostly stock, good, clean. The exterior mostly stock. I've just made some minor updates over time. The biggest thing has really just been performance stuff, and nothing exotic, but things I've done in the last, oh gosh, 10, 15 years. So let's check this out. There might be a little bit of glare, so I apologize again, but under hood of this beast, it is a little dirty. And I did recently wash it, so it's kind of a weird mix of everything under here. But yeah, the mighty 305 tune port. Probably the coolest looking engine, but not exactly a performance, well, for the time it was, but in general, a design much better suited for pickup trucks and towing than any kind of performance application. They just can't rev. But still the original 305 tune port, like I said. Original 700 R4 transmission, and still has the weak 10-bolt rear. But I've done various things over the years. Full exhaust, has Hedman headers, custom Y pipe I made, back to a Flowmaster exhaust. Did a cheapo ceramic coating many years ago that from the heat you can tell just chipped right off. Internally the engine stock. 85 Camaros had just a slightly better cam in them than Later years, I think maybe by the end of the generation, they got pretty good again. Yeah, all the engine internals are stock. Lots of replacements over the years. But so basically, performance-wise, it just has all the basics. I gutted the airbox down below, K&N filters. What else? Otherwise, the intake, it's got one of those little airfoils in here in the throttle body. That was a common thing you did back in the day. Like I said, otherwise the engine on top, the fuel injection, everything, all that stock. Still in a stock tune. What else? Let's see. I guess that's probably it for the engine. Full exhaust, like I mentioned. Transmission does have a shift kit. That woke up a little bit. It's pretty sloppy for a stock 700R4, but shift kit, first, second to third, it'll trip the tires pretty good. I think it's been a while, but I think it wouldn't do it second to third, and I think over when I swapped it in, you can notice just a firmer shift. But yeah, for performance and drivetrain, that's pretty much it. I might be forgetting a few things. I've done lots of new radiator and a lot of maintenance parts over the years because I've had it for so long. But got rid of stupid move. Well, maybe not. Had air conditioning, got rid of it, fabbed up a crappy little box over there for where the air conditioning would have been. It wasn't working, and of course, many years ago I thought it'd be cooler to get rid of it. Probably should have left it. But that's pretty much all the drivetrain performance stuff. Chassis wise, mostly stock. This is a 4-wheel disc car. They were a little bit rare. Still has a stock springs. I have some of the typical rear suspension. I think it's Lakewood, the lower control arms, Panhard bar, things like that. It's pretty common under the rear. What else? Oh, it does have actually a good thing. Really recommend it on third gens, but any kind of unibody car. You can kind of see it down there, but it's got subframe connectors, and man, that is I highly recommend that. Really stiffens up the chassis, because on these things they're not the stiffest. But yeah, so that's, I'm sure I'm forgetting some things. I'm just looking at it right now. It's got a Grant steering wheel. It's like a little 13-inch. Too small. Really should have put a bigger one, but I'll probably replace that at some point. But yeah, that's most of the performance mods, things like that. Like I said, I'm probably forgetting other things, but over 20 years I've had this thing, so it's been a fun car. So let's talk about last thing is really what's next for this thing. So that's really the question. What am I doing with this car? I mean, obviously, if you've seen some of my videos, and I don't know if I've said it too much, but stock vehicles really don't interest me. A lot of these old collector cars with all the original stuff, I'm more in modified stuff, so that includes modern, old, really doesn't matter. But when it comes to this thing, I've had different thoughts over the years, but based on the cars I currently own, I'm thinking this is going to be kind of like a street strip car. Very much street legal, full interior, everything like that, but I wouldn't mind playing around with the 305 a little bit, see what you can realistically get out of it, probably with nitrous, things like that, before either it goes or I pull it. Because anything serious in this car, you got to place the rear. The 10 bolts are... Oh, one other thing I did, just thinking off the top of my head here, I did put... I don't remember, so much this was years ago, but I did put a 373 rear gear and posi Eaton. Can't remember which one it was anymore, but that was another good change in the car, because I think it had maybe 323s or 273s, or I can't remember what it would come with, but it was a pretty good change, especially for just like a cruiser where you're not driving it all the time, you're not putting thousands of miles on the highways. That is another thing that woke up a little bit, and might as well, before I dive more into the plans coming up, I can wrap up I guess you call it performance aspect. But back at sea level at Bandimere Speedway, Bandimere, that's where I'm at now, Maple Grove Raceway in Pennsylvania. What did it do? I think it ran low 15s stock, and then with all my tinkering, it got down to a 14.4 at like 93. So I didn't quite get a second, but I got like 6 or 7 tenths. Gearing, transmission, performance mods, things like that all added up. So it was a pretty fun little car back then, or back there at sea level. But obviously up here at elevation, it certainly hurts it. So it's certainly a little bit slower. So we'll definitely get it back to the track, see what it does here in its current configuration, and then kind of go from there. But speaking of that, kind of final plans. Well, there is no final plans. Next plans. Like I was starting to say there, probably a street strip kind of drag street kind of car. See what the 305 can do, combined with that 10 bolt. Eventually both will be gone, and then put something more serious in there. I don't really have too much of an interest in an LS swap because it's just so common now in everything. I have some other vehicles that have LS engines in it, and we'll talk about more later. But I don't know, stick with the traditional small block, some weird swap. I have a lot of 4-cylinder stuff. I don't know, that's not normal, but I don't know. But long term, it'd definitely be getting rid of the 305. But it might be fun to play around with it for a little bit. So, yeah, let me know what you think. But I think for as long as I owned it, I'm never getting rid of this car. So I'll keep tinkering, modifying, do new things. But it's always going to be that one I'll probably always keep and hang on to. So it's not going to get stripped. It's not going to be a pure race car. Can't do that to this thing. It's too clean, too nice. Had it for too long. So, but anyway, just want to do a quick intro to this one. Somehow, like I said in the beginning, I've had this for, well, so many years, and I've never talked about it. It might have been in the side of some of my videos and things like that. But anyway, this thing is, well, of all of them, it's probably my baby. I don't think I'd ever really get rid of this one. So yeah, just a little intro. I know it's not too exciting here, but yeah, we'll next video or two, I'll probably take to the track, see what it does in this current configuration, play around with it a little bit, see, between the transmission, that's probably not the weak link. The weak link's definitely the engine itself and the rear end. So nothing crazy we'll get out of it, but I think we get a little bit. So let's find out. But thanks for watching. See you in the next one.